And hello, everyone. Welcome to the WARPburg Infusion Entertainment Review. It's time for episode number 72, where we're talking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, the new release, here for beginning of August 2023. We're recording on August 5th, specifically. Alongside me is Patrick, aka Mr. Fusion.
Greetings and salutations, everybody.
I suppose I should probably also intro myself. I'm Thomas, aka Mr. Wartburg. And joining us for, what is this, the fourth time? How many times have you been on the show, Chris?
It's 4 or 5.
Yeah, you're
'Cause I know
definitely.
We've done plenty.
Yeah, we've done a lot. So joining
Yeah.
us once again is Chris, aka Gamma Caruchador.
Yo.
So Chris is here because he's a TMNT guy, like myself, and Fusion, of course, grew up with the original. I got it kind of secondhand via VHS, but obviously I'm rocking the TMNT shirt. So we're going to be talking about the new movie, what we liked, what we didn't, what we hope for the future of the franchise, and we'll maybe even talk about some various different iterations. There was the live action show, there was the animated, all the different animated shows. There have been different movies, different and video games. Like last year was Shredder's Revenge. Like there's a lot of different stuff in TMNT as a franchise to talk about. So that'll be kind of our back half stuff. We'll focus on the movie at the very beginning. So we'll go through some basic kind of top level what we thought of things, like the cast and the crew and how it's doing at the box office, and then get into some spoilers about the story. And then we'll talk about kind of TMNT at large towards the end of the episode. But before we do, since it's TMNT, everyone's got to have their pizza. So I'm rocking. I got my Mountain Dew to pour.
Nice.
We'll see if this gets picked up. Hopefully it does. And I think my noise gate's cutting it off.
I was just gonna say, I think your filters.
Add sound effect here.
Yeah, I'll add in a pouring sound effect. There's some
Nice.
Mountain Dew, but I got my one slice of pepperoni with Parmesan and pepper flakes. Chris, what do you got? Oh, you got
I
a
got
big.
pepperoni.
He's got a whole pie
Oh,
here.
shit.
I bought it was like $12 for a 12-inch, so I'm like,
Gotta
I'll
do
take
it.
that. Yeah.
No, I have a
I've got a
lot
few
of really
pieces.
good. Austin has become a really good pizza place. And normally I would jump in on this, but I had pizza a couple nights ago, and so we decided to go for Chinese. But I'm still partaking. I brought pizza rolls, gentlemen,
Totino's. Dude,
and they're not going to be piping hot in the middle to where I won't burn the roof of my mouth.
Oh, you
yeah.
gotta do
They
them
have
in the air
they have
fryer.
a little bit of zing to it too. Like that's why I love pizza rolls over like pizza bagels that you don't make yourself.
Yeah.
Pizza bagels you make yourself, they top Totino's.
They say pizza rolls in the air fryer,
Oh,
very
yes.
good. Because like
Yes, they
doing
are.
them in the stove, they don't get the outside will get crispy. It doesn't get cooked through
Mm.
all the way. Air fry, I don't know. It just fucking works much better, way better than the microwave for sure. So that's my take on pizza
I
rolls.
agree.
Clearly, people are coming to this podcast for my take on pizza rolls.
Right.
Oh,
Let
for sure.
me get my bite in.
Also, this is my first time eating this pizza. Good job, pizza place that I got this from.
I was gonna say at the outset, Chris recently moved. So
Mhm.
how is the move going?
I mean, I'm technically settled in. You might hear a little bit of a reverberation since from other episodes. I actually have an office now, so
Nice.
it's kind of empty in here and sound bounces around. I've got to figure out a way to do that, like sound dampen it a little bit.
I'll send you a recommendations on how to build some cheap bass traps in the corners.
Dude, I'll take it.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm all set up. I was supposed to transfer jobs or transfer locations, but that's a whole issue. Let's just say that corporate America is being corporate America. So I technically still work there. I just don't work there right now.
Are they paying you to not work?
I don't, well, no, because I'm not going to work, but I technically still have health insurance and all that kind of stuff. So I'll take it. But yeah, at the moment, I'm literally just trying to do my art stuff to try and at least alleviate some of the costs. Doing okay. I'm getting to the business side, but it's a nice place. I like it.
You
You
got
might
you
hear-
got the art up already, which is the important thing.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a bunch of friends' arts behind me. If there is noise outside, I'm gonna try because I'm right on a corner and people have loud, douchey cars here. So I'll try and mute myself if that happens, but
Yeah, it's okay.
we'll see.
It's the ambiance of a podcast. You know?
Yeah, it's you know what? It's the Mutant Mayhem happening outside. We just gotta listen to the chaos.
See, man, it's just those East Coasters, man. They're just dicks, right?
You know what? That's true.
You know,
It's
we're
true.
we're some Midwest boys, so we don't like we don't vibe with that, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I
you
was
say
really
that, but I'm from Houston, where the loud thumping cars are an art form. So
Yeah, but that's like a
like,
purposeful thing, right? Like
yeah,
it's
it
not
is.
just because you're a dick. You know
Yeah,
what I
no,
mean?
no,
Yeah.
There's
it's
like
it's a
even like East
cultural
Austin
thing
has
here.
a culture like that kind of car culture, right? Like didn't they have a they used to?
They used to. Now it's not. It's been very gentrified in East Austin. So
Yeah,
yeah,
but like there's a culture of it. Like this,
yeah,
what Chris is talking about is just people being assholes.
yeah.
yeah,
For
dude, there's
us, the closest
somebody
I get to that is fucking truckers with their goddamn air brakes, their J brakes,
oh,
that they just because I'm on a trucking road, so they just fucking hammer on it because the stop sign's I'm a quarter mile from my house. Like, come on, my dog's trying to sleep, assholes.
oh, dude, there's a guy, apparently he works at night every single night during the week, 11:15 at night, and I don't think he has a muffler. So I hear that thing going crazy right outside my window at the light, and then he peels off, and I'm just like, dude, you don't deserve anything. Please just go home and sleep.
All right, well now the car talk's out of the way, and I had another bite of pizza. Let's talk
All right.
about TMNT, Mutant Mayhem. This is the new release from Paramount. I always forget Paramount owns TMNT, which is one of their other big movies this summer. They obviously have Dead Mission Impossible, and they stupidly decided to put that the weekend before Barbenheimer. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like Barbieheimer, sorry, I missaid that. So of course that movie fell on its face at the box office, even though it's a very good movie. Now they're coming back a few weeks later, and it looks like TMNT is going to end up number 2 at the box office behind Barbie. It's going to have about a 30 to 40 million opening weekend, give or take. Though word of mouth is apparently really strong, so it might get into the mid 40s.
Yeah.
On a budget of about 70, that's pretty good, and that's obviously pre-advertising. But still, given the shelf life this is going to have on streaming, and how long they'll have it in theaters, because there's not much else other than Blue Beetle coming out in terms of the mainstream audience. I imagine this is going to have a solid August and actually make a fair amount of money. It was directed by Jeff Rowe, produced by the team of Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and James Weaver. Obviously, the former two, you know, from stuff like Superbad. Like, they've been a producing team for, gotta be 20, was it almost 20 years now in Hollywood? They've been working
About
together a
20
long
years.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I
excuse me.
think I think their friendship predates the
Oh, yeah.
40-year-old virgin, but I think that's when they started collaborating
Yeah.
together. Is after
Yeah,
that.
so they've been a producing team, and honestly, the stuff they produce has turned out they've got an incredible track record as producers. I mean, like things like The Boys, right? Like that's another contemporary like adaptation that they've taken on and done really, really well with. So when it was announced they were getting TMNT, I was actually really excited because clearly Seth Rogen is basically a permanent teenager,
Yeah.
and he knows how to make good shit. Like he knows
And this is-
he's got the sources and the people to make good things, and that certainly seems to be the case here. So
This is his second animated movie of the year too. He was in Mario as well.
yeah,
So and like he's been in animated movies. He knows animated movies already.
Yep.
So him going into this one is like it's not out of his wheelhouse.
Exactly.
He worked it well.
So I was a big fan of this, and I'm not going to get into my thoughts too much because I've been doing a lot of talking at the start. So Chris, you're our guest. What did you think of TMNT Mutant Mayhem?
I think it was a good movie. It was definitely one of the better animated movies that's come out recently. I don't think it's on the same level, at least story-wise, as my favorite.
Yeah.
The Spider-Verse. Artistically, I thought it was incredible. Everything looked like a concept painting, or like it had this painterly style to it, or even like claymation almost. That made it look really interesting, and like visually I was stunned by it. Story wise, I think it was definitely a story made for the younger audiences. I don't think there was a whole lot that was for older audiences personally, at least theming wise. Like with the Spider-Verse, there are some darker themes in this one. It's a lot lighter themes. So I think it is a little bit catered more towards the younger audience. But I think as an older person, I think it's an enjoyable film. I think it's worth seeing for sure. Like I'd probably give it an 8.5 out of 10 kind of deal.
Yep. And I agree for that. For me, one of the bigger differences between the one that's going to be compared to a lot with Spider-Verse is for Spider-Verse, you had a lens that like older characters could view it through with Peter B. Parker, right?
Yeah.
Who's a main part of the story. It's not just a story about Miles. Obviously, that's the main focus, but there's other plots going on. Whereas in this, it's much more, like you said, tailored toward the teens, because it's a group of teens. It's basically a coming-of-age story for them. And rightly so, it should that's where the focus should be.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the biggest subplot is the Jackie Chan one with him as Splinter. Like
Right.
him, dealing with humans. Like that's the bigger subplot.
Yeah.
And which means
Yeah.
way more of the weight is on the teenage characters, which I actually think works really well for a property entitled Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
Like they lean into that, and I think in it for the better. So I could definitely see another generation of fans being like, "Hey, TMNT is awesome," which I'm game for.
course.
So Fusion,
Yeah.
what's your takeaway?
First off, you can't forget, even though it's a Paramount Studios, it's also a Nickelodeon production.
Yeah, they have a
Forget that.
weird partnership, right? Because like it airs on, like the show stuff airs on Nickelodeon.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And then whenever there's television shows that can be produced, they basically funnel through Nickelodeon, or they're licensed out to networks. That's how it works. But it's through Nickelodeon Studios now. But anyway, I thought this was a really good movie. It exceeded my expectations. Now, Warburg, you're right on a lot of things. Seth Rogen, he's like Favreau and Filoni. He's a fan, but he's a fan that understands like what fans like, versus like J.J. Abrams was a Star Wars fan, but he comes to Star Wars with a perspective of a Hollywood director, right? That's, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's got
Whereas
his style takes over the
Yep.
like the actual
Mhm.
IP,
whereas
which
whereas
is why this Star
Favreau,
Trek has major issues. But
Yep. Whereas Favreau and Filoni, they're producers, directors, writers, but they come to the table as fans of the IP, and that's how they write. That's how they put on a production, as a fan, not as a Hollywood machine, right? This is the same thing with Goldberg and Seth Rogen, in that whatever they put out there, they make sure that. And here's the thing: I don't know if you guys saw it, but years back, Seth Rogen did a reboot of the Green Hornet. He
Yep.
lost a ton of weight.
Oh, I
Awful
love that
movie.
actually, honestly.
It's an awful movie, but there's layers
there's a
of
lot
it.
of there's a lot of charm to it, even for how like
Yeah,
not great
yeah.
it is.
It's a
Yes.
charming movie, but I will tell you, if you ever go watch interviews with Seth Rogen, he talks about his learning experiences working with good people and bad people in Hollywood, and he's not like fickled. He just doesn't give a shit. He's not afraid of anyone, which is great, because he's like, look, I've made enough money to live for the rest of my life, but I just want to put shit out there that people are going to have fun with and have a good time. And it's like, okay, keep that mindset, but then the Hollywood machine pushes against him. He doesn't give a shit. He's just like, well, I'll just go find another studio, or I'll get a collective of rich celebrities to fucking pull money together, and we can make an independent production. Like he doesn't give a shit. He's not afraid of Hollywood, which is what I love about the fact that if he were to go and do a collaboration with A24, a studio we talked about, they could reap some serious benefits if he was able to buy rights to some of like known products like this, right? IPs like this. But man, it's a great fan service film. It's somewhat of an origin story retelling, a little bit of different spin. Chris, I'm with you. I love the artwork style. I think that Into the Spider-Verse opened the floodgates with production teams and designers to really take chances where they didn't used to want to take chances, because Hollywood, the machine, the execs, they really wanted us. And we know this, guys. We've talked about this enough, Warburg. They want a consistent model every time. Just follow
Well, that's
this
why everybody
model.
was doing even the universe, like the DreamWorks and the Disney and the Pixar. It all looked the same.
Yep. Yeah.
The models
exactly.
weren't that different.
And then Spider-Verse came out in 2018, and everyone was like, holy shit, this is different, but this is great. Like the music's great, the artwork's great, the storytelling's great. This does a good job of that. Now, Is it a 10 out of 10? I joke when I say it's a 10 out of 10, but for what I was expecting, it exceeded my expectations because it's a really good family film. Kids can enjoy it, but adults that are like my age aren't going to go in there and feel like our intelligence is insulted at all, you know? And the kids that are the four turtles, the young guys that are the four turtles, I know that their approach was let's go with younger guys, no one big named. Okay, but the big name actors that voice the rest of the cast, they actually pull like they pull the weight of the film. You know, this movie wouldn't have been good if Ice Cube had not been cast as Superfly.
Oh,
I'm
Yeah,
gonna say that
yeah,
right
that
now.
it works.
Like that he made the movie work.
He also let Rose
Every,
Byrne do her natural accent.
oh, the Leatherhead, yeah, with
Yeah,
Leatherhead,
because
yeah,
she is
Oh, yeah.
Australian.
yeah.
yeah,
So
I love that.
what cracked me up was everything. All that said, if you guys watch the credits at the end and introducing Paul Rudd as
I
Mondo
was gonna
Gecko,
bring that up.
That
That
was
was so funny.
Inspired casting.
Yeah.
but you know, like you look at the list of the celebrities that are voice acting the other characters, it's obviously a shit ton of people that Seth Rogen's friends with that he's worked on movies with, right? That's fine because this isn't an intellectual piece. This isn't like a Ghibli studio production where you have to really think about it. It's the fucking it's like Rise of the Beast. Like Rise of the Beast to me was a good film because it's Transformers, man. I'm a huge Transformers guy. You can't exactly make this like art house style
Yeah, you're not
storytelling.
making the Dark Knight. You're making
No,
TMNT.
no. And you're making TMNT and like but it's a good Turtles movie, man. I will say this that subplot with Splinter was a very interesting. It caught me a little bit by surprise, but I thought they did a good job, and then the ending with it was hilarious. But you know, at some point the question is, okay, when do we get Shredder? It's like, well, that question's going to be answered for you here in a little bit. And then, of course, the next thing is, are we going to get the Technodrome? Are we going to get Dimension X? It's like obviously they're going to push towards that stuff. All I'm worried about is give me Usagi Yojimbo at some point. I need to have Usagi Yojimbo.
Isn't he?
I,
Isn't that the character that's coming in DLC for Shredder's Revenge?
yep,
Yeah, thought
yep,
so.
yep.
So
Almost got a Usagi Yojimbo tattoo until my wife put the kibosh on that. She just doesn't want a giant samurai rabbit on my
yeah,
stuff. But yeah, man, I had fun with this movie, man. I did.
agreed. It was a very fun time.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get into some of the other big things, like what I liked most. I actually thought, obviously, the big standout for me is Leonardo and April. Those are the two that kind of get the most kind of character of the teens, I should say. There's obviously some different bits and pieces with the other three. You know, like they hinted. You know, I like that they kind of toned down. They're not making Raphael like edgy. He's just
Yeah.
angry. He's just an angry teen.
And-
But they're not
yeah.
making him like emo, you know, or anything like that. I like the, you know, and there's not much with Michelangelo, and other than his connection with Paul Rudd's, you know, character Mondo, and then Donatello doesn't have much, but I imagine they'll get more focus in the next one because I assume this is going to get a sequel, or at the very least a sequel series. Because if I remember right, didn't Paramount say they were going to do a series based on this?
Yeah, I think they want to go TV. I think they were wanting to just get an influx of cash from it, and then they want to do a show.
Which does make sense given the plot point here about them wanting to go to high school.
But given the cost, well, the budget was only 70 million. So you have to ask yourself how much.
I mean,
would
how
they
much of
fund?
that was the big name actors too?
Yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah.
So, and setting it in a single location is going to change out a lot of, or a main single location is going to reduce costs quite a bit. So, and it might even be a simpler animated show. It might not be as the same exact art style. But for me, yeah, probably the April's probably the biggest name of the teens because she's a little older. It's Ayo Edebiri. Is that how you say her last name? She's in The
think
Bear,
so.
as well as she was one of the main characters on Big Mouth for a while on Netflix, and she's been in a few other things. I think she's going to be in Thunderbolts, if I remember seeing that right. I'm not sure what role he's going to have in that, but she's definitely an on the rise kind of actor. So she's definitely someone that really stood out. I thought introducing April early made the most sense, not doing like you said with Shredder and Dimension X and the Technodrome, and like that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff to throw at it. So starting simpler, starting with an origin story and kind of a coming of age story versus, you know, fighting the Foot Clan and stuff. Like that makes more sense.
Mhm.
Though I'm not a huge fan of how they handled like there was way too many villains to have in one time, and all of a sudden now they're all good. To me, that just kind of felt like they were cutting off so many future potential things they could do. But that's just my take. So, all right. So, what do you guys want to start with the actual movie itself, with the plot? So, we're gonna get into spoilers here. Any
I'll
big
start,
moments?
man.
Any you want to talk with the mid-credit scene first? Like,
For me, it
take it
was
away.
the. I'll take it from the very beginning. We've kind of retconned here the approach of Baxter Stockman, which I'm okay with because in the original TV show in the '80s, he was the Fly, the human Fly, whereas he creates. Basically, he's the father of all these mutants, right? He's the creator of the mutant gen, and creates these mutates, whatever you want to call them, including the turtles, which is by accident, and then by proxy, Splinter gets mutated as well. But I like the story change a little. It differentiates there, as well as where Splinter isn't this like global terrorist, where he's more so like a hired gun that we're gonna get. Not Splinter, I'm sorry, Shredder. He's gonna be a hired gun. So I'm like, okay, I like that as well. I do. Now I will say this: it is a Nickelodeon film, so there is a little bit of like lessons learned here, and there is this layer of like not bullying, so to speak, but kind of like the outcast, and kind of like the social reject, and finding a place and getting confidence. And the message is done in a very fun way through most of the film. And then at the very end, the third act, it's much more poignant, but it's not. It never gets too serious. It's just like, hey, you're different. I get it. We all get it. We're all different. Embrace yourself, embrace it, and then be your best version of you, which is like kind of the message, which was really a cool way to approach it. I think when April's in the studio, the TV studio, and she kind of just lets herself go. I think that was kind of an example of that. And then, of course, at the very end with the whole school thing, like you said, Warburg, that kind of was like, hey, let's just circle back to the very beginning where these guys just want to be a part of, which is very different from the other, like the TV show. They kind of hint at being able to go out there in society. The Michael Bay movies, the other movies, less desire from the guys to like be out in the open constantly. Maybe Out of the Shadows was probably the only one where we saw that, but this one was like, hey, this is a big deal for them. They want to feel normal. So I was I like the message. I thought it was a good message, man. Very rarely do I like these kids movies where they're like kind of where they don't stick the landing on like kind of teaching you a lesson. But this one did a good job of it. Yeah.
I think this movie also did a real good job of making it feel nostalgic for the viewers like us. And I think one of the best ways that they did that was their music choices. Everything felt like late 80s, mid to like early 2000s kind of music. Plus, you had, I believe, there was like the actual arcade, uh, like a rendition of the arcade cabinet song in there as well. Um, but like, I, yeah, they had a great message for kids. I think it was a fantastic message that should be. I mean, in a kids movie, you should always have that kind of message, but to actually have that cater to adults for the music, you have Ice Cube again. He was incredible. Everybody who was part of that, like you watch this acting, like even though it's just voice acting, everybody had fun doing this.
Yeah.
I saw a little interview with Seth Rogen and the four guys that played the turtles, and Rogen said one of the last movies he did for animation, it was The Lion King actually, with him and the guy who played Timon. They put them in the same room together so they could riff off each other. Rogen was just like, "We're doing that with the four turtles," and he said that most of the scenes that the turtles were in were mainly improv, aside from certain dialogue that needed to be said. But everything was just them riffing together. Like there's that whole part where they're explaining to April what's going on, but all of them are saying a different story and at the same time, and she's just trying to like I'm assuming that was all improv, and they're all just actually speaking that at the same time in a booth together. Like, and it's fun to watch that kind of stuff. People had fun making this movie, and when you see people having fun making a movie and you can tell that, that's a good movie in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I was reading something on Twitter, so I was expecting the third act to be a little more kind of weird body horror because they were definitely kind of doing that with like this with Superfly and the mutants and all that. Because someone was like, "Yeah, don't bring a 4-year-old to this movie," because the third act when they kind of merge all the like Superfly gets merged with all the all the animals together, which I still don't know how the fuck he got horses. I don't know.
The zoo. He
Yeah,
landed
but
in the zoo.
the zoo
He
doesn't
landed in
have
the zoo.
horses.
The petting zoo.
Yeah, Chris is right. We have a petting zoo in there.
Okay, whatever. It just
There's
didn't make
the
a lot of
cowboys
sense.
that live there. You know.
Yeah. Anyway, but I thought
It's New York, man. There can be all types of shit at the zoo in New York.
Yeah.
I thought turning it into basically a kaiju fight at
Mhm.
the end was definitely a weird swerve
Mhm.
compared to most TMNT stories, but it worked because they gotta have their hero moment, and you have the city of New York coming together, a la when the god was it
Green
Lizard?
Goblin and
Yeah, like
Spider-Man?
is going after
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
get the fuck out of here.
You mess with one of us, you mess with
You mess
all
with
of us.
You got that kind of scene, which is
Yeah.
super cheesy, but also perfectly fits the tone of a Spider-Man and of a TMNT. Like it perfectly fits that. And like you said, the needle drops were fantastic. I don't know if they're like all-time Guardians of the Galaxy level needle drops, but they're very
No,
close.
No.
With some really, and it's a little more subtle because it's just kind of, like they're not, the music's not carrying the message like sometimes it is in the Guardians movies. So, but it was extremely well done. They all really worked and fit what they were going for. But yeah, I just don't want to keep beating around the bush here. I just really liked this movie, and I really like the setup for Shredder, which is the mid-credit scene. They go to high school, right? They're at, was it at prom? That's the mid-credit scene.
I think so.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's actually a lengthy mid-credit scene. It's like a whole sequence where they go to
Yeah.
school, go to prom, and then they're getting spied on by the corporation TCRI. And then they call in Shredder because they want to take out the turtles. So my guess is the second one's going to be a lot darker. I would imagine maybe like Splinter doesn't see the end of that one, kind of story, because it's now they've done their coming of age, accepting yourself kind of story. Now they're going to get into, getting towards adulthood and like that kind of story. So that'll be a little more emotional and probably a little darker in terms of story. Obviously, this one was set a lot at night, so it's physically dark. But yeah, I'm really excited to see where they go because I think they've built a great foundation for a TMNT franchise off this movie. So I'm curious where they go, both with said possible series. Obviously, the strike's going to impact that, as well as whenever they can do the next movie, whenever that's going to be. So hopefully it doesn't take that long, but with the strike, who knows?
So looking things up, apparently Paramount has said they're going to do both a sequel movie and a TV show.
Yeah, like I imagine the series is going to bridge into the sequel.
Yeah.
Do the high school series, do it maybe just a one-off, like we're going to do like a senior year of high school kind of story kind of thing. Or maybe it's their whenever, what would they be, freshmen, sophomores? Do a single season of school and then lead up to Shredder, coming after them in the sequel. So
Now, I do want to bring something up because Chris brought up the music. I don't know if you guys knew this, but this was a film that was composed by Trent Reznor.
Yep,
of
him and
Nine
Atticus
Nails.
Ross.
Mhm.
Yep. So I think the very first film he ever composed was The Social Network, which was phenomenal. And then since then he's been jumping on a bunch. So Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails fame is now a Hollywood composer. But I thought his score leading into the soundtrack, like the actual songs, the licensed songs, I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I think like there were just so many elements that really came together for this film to make it a good movie.
Yep, I want that duo to get a DC movie. I want them to do an apocalypse.
yeah.
Whenever they do an apocalypse movie, like something with Darkseid or the New Gods, give me some Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. You shitting me?
Oh,
They dominate that.
He's got to score the Constantine 2 movie, right?
Oh, you like
Oh.
honestly just have him be the main composer for the DCEU, and that'd be
Right?
fine. Because like Watchmen's soundtrack was incredible, and that
Yeah.
was those guys. That was amazing. A lot of synth heavy stuff because obviously they're riffing off an '80s property, but still incredible soundtrack. And again, they brought their A game here, and it was a great soundtrack.
Yep.
Anything else we want to touch on?
Let's see. I'm trying to think through here. We got Giancarlo Esposito to play Baxter Stockman at the beginning, which was
Yeah,
cool.
I was
Liked that.
surprised.
Mhm.
I'm wondering again in the sequel if he's going to come back because he was very just in the intro and then gone.
He
Right.
died. He quote unquote died off screen, and we know how that works. We know that in Hollywood terms, if you're not shown on camera dying, that the
Is he
chances
is
of
he gonna come back as like an AI or something?
yeah.
You know, a la what's the character that was in Winter Soldier? Zola. Like, is he gonna
Oh,
come back in with that kind of, because that would be very fitting for like a team like Seth Rogen to do a story where with an evil AI.
He might come back as like a Nixon head from Futurama.
That also would fit a Seth Rogen.
There you go.
That would also be fitting him as a head in a jar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say one of the things that I didn't like, I think they could have done more with was the TCRI subplot. Because I
Right.
feel like they had it at the beginning and then it was just kind of off to the side. Like it was just at the back of everybody's mind. And then they do one little snippet of it with the turtles. And then it's done until the post credit scene. They either needed to do less with that and more with other things, or do more with that and flesh that out a little bit more. That's the only like plot issue I think I really have with.
Well, it's the Techno Cosmic Research Institute, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
obviously they're kind of low keying the idea of like the Technodrome coming out.
Yeah.
Maybe they do testing in a sequel movie that opens up Dimension X or something.
Oh, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, so they're I mean, the main thing is that a lot of the other mutants from the comic books and particularly the 80s TV show, a lot of those guys are showcased in the very beginning of this movie. I mean, well, not at the very beginning, but
Throughout.
they're
Yeah.
throughout the movie. So it's like you're gonna run thin on characters, but you got a couple films you could sneak out with Krang and Dimension X, and you can talk. You maybe even do Usagi Yojimbo in some way, shape, or form.
Well,
But like,
I think you do him if Shredder doesn't stick around.
yeah,
That's the character
I
that shows up
Mhm.
yep.
to kind of take his
So
role.
there's I mean, you got a couple films out of it, but I mean, there's stories that you can tell outside of just strictly Shredder. Like the Foot could be its own like terrorist organization, like do something completely different with them. Like
Yeah.
they're into bioterrorism, or like you said, there's an AI that gets disruptive.
Mhm.
The AI, the
Which,
Baxter Stockman AI is what builds the Mousers and shit
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. I could
Yeah.
totally see that.
So
And obviously
there's
they're
space for
probably
good
not
potential.
wanting to make these forever because I mean, the kids aren't going to
No.
be teens forever.
Right. I think the only one that I noticed was like if they make a sequel, Donnie's voice is going to be very different, I think.
Right.
Because I think the rest of them have already have a low enough register. But Donnie was definitely uh his voice is definitely going to change
Yeah,
going
Micah
forward.
Micah Abbey. I think he's like a teen, not even 18 yet.
Yeah,
Or
I think other than the AO at Iberi, they were all teens. I think she
Mhm.
technically probably was when they were doing the show. Or were
no,
doing.
because she's 27. There's no
Oh,
way.
okay. Never mind then.
Oh
I
wow.
thought she was
Okay.
younger than that.
No, she's in her late 20s.
Thank you for looking. I looked up the name, didn't look up the age. Yeah, she's a
Like
little
the
bit
rest,
older than them.
yeah, the rest
Mhm.
of the guys are in their teens, like late teens to mid to late teens. Where I think Micah Abbey is probably like early mid teens, but um, that's kind of the danger. That's like we talked about this, like I've talked to my wife about this. That's why Hollywood traditionally with like teenage dramas and stuff, they cast 20-year-olds because they've hit their growth spurts, right? And they're
Mhm.
Yeah.
they've hit puberty. They don't want to risk
And
them
obviously with
changing too much.
animation, you can get around most of that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it'll
But it's just
work.
his voice might change, but they can make it a joke. They can make it a
Oh,
joke.
for
Right.
sure, that'll be a part. Well,
Yeah,
they
I
even
mean,
kind of
they're
had the voice
going
cracking joke with Leo.
yeah.
yeah, they're going into high school. This is the time where voice changes usually start. So it makes sense that their voices might change going forward. So that I mean, it's
I
not
will say this about Michelangelo. I like the fact that they didn't overly dumb him down, which is
Yeah,
a
they
Mhm.
didn't
problem I
make him
had.
a himbo in the making.
Yeah, like
right.
I had a problem with that in the Michael Bay movies was that they did their best to just him. He was the slapstick guy, but almost to a point to where you kind of felt bad for him because he was
Mhm.
like completely like just not an idiot per se, but just more of like he had no problem being the butt of all jokes, taking it on like Chris Farley, like just being the center of like physical humor. And I really didn't like that too much, but I like the fact that he was a much more like level-headed character in this movie. But man, like when I think about like Post Malone playing Ray Fillet, like it's just an interesting cast, man. It was an
Yeah.
interesting cast.
Yeah.
Of
Fucking
characters.
John Cena was he Rocksteady?
Rock,
Yeah.
Rocksteady, yeah.
Yeah, like that I didn't even like pick up that that's who it was until the credits. Paul Rudd, you could hear it once you like know it's Paul Rudd. You
Oh
can
yeah,
hear
when he
it.
goes, "Hey dudes," you're
I
like,
actually
"Oh,
I had no idea until it said introducing Paul Rudd. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, what? Um, but I,
did you not watch Forgetting Sarah Marshall because he sounds just like
I
him."
haven't. I haven't
He's like,
seen
"Hey
Forgetting Sarah
dude," it's
Marshall.
like, "Oh, it's Paul Rudd." Okay,
Yeah, that's his
I
like his Hawaiian surfer character.
yeah,
I do think I remember thinking this during the movie. It was like halfway through the movie. I'm like, I don't think I've seen any of the turtles skateboarding. And then like 10 minutes later, it shows Mondo skateboarding. I'm like, this is where that's gonna come from, definitely.
Yeah. So, anything else we want to touch on before we kind of get into? I mean, we can leave this a shorter episode too. That's not a huge deal.
no,
Anything else
I
you guys
think
want to get on with TMNT?
no, I mean, you know what, man? I think they really did a really good job of kind of soft rebooting the universe,
Mhm.
giving us like a good an option for storytelling. And hey, if they make a game out of this, that'd be really cool too. I think it'd be a
Oh yeah.
cool,
Oh,
especially with this kind of art style.
that reminds me to talk about what we were going to. One of my other questions I had for you guys. So now that we've seen this,
Mhm.
obviously most of you guys will have probably seen all of the TMNT movies, maybe close to. Obviously, it's been some time probably for most of them, but where does this rank in your TMNT kind of movie list?
Ooh.
Is
That's
it
a
your
good
favorite
one.
TMNT movie? Is it second favorite? Like, is it I can't imagine it's anywhere near the end of the list because it's a very good movie.
No.
And honestly,
No.
in terms of TMNT, the movies are probably the weakest part of their franchise
Right.
in terms of actually making good movies. So,
I think for some nostalgic reasons, I'm gonna put this one at 3
okay.
Okay,
because I think Secret of the Ooze is my favorite.
Hmm.
So
okay.
the second one, from like the original run, and then the first one that they were in, I really like. I actually quote that all the time. And fun fact, the first TMNT movie was Sam Rockwell's first film.
Yep.
He
I
Oh
was
yeah,
was yeah,
he was a foot soldier. That's
he was
right.
one of the foot kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was the guy who walks around. He's like, you can do anything you want, smoke, whatever. Like, I always forget that, but like, it's interesting to think. But I like those two movies. I think the third one is a little bit lower down. I think that might probably be the lowest on the TMNT list.
Yeah.
The two Michael Bay ones were fun. I did like the TMNT animated one that was like 2012 or something.
No,
That
07, 07.
the Batman crossover one was
07,
really
yes.
good too.
Yeah. I
Now the
still need to see that one.
yeah, that one was a good one, but I will say that 07 one is a sleeper movie because
It is.
it has a really good cast of actors like
Hmm.
voicing on it, but
Yeah.
it's actually a really good story. But if I'm not mistaken, that TMNT animation movie, isn't it a sequel to the first three films? Like, isn't it canon
I
to
think it's
those?
supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it happened like 10 or 15 years after those films, I think.
Yeah, they're supposed to be old. They're in their 20s now. They're not
Hmm.
teens. That's why it's called
Yeah,
TMNT.
because
So
they're
for
all doing
me,
their own thing.
so I will say the first film, the 1990 film, because it's so quotable, it's nostalgic. Obviously, that's number one for me. I'm gonna go with number two at TMNT because I really like that film. I think it was a really good film. And then three, I'm probably gonna go with Mutant Mayhem and Before Secretly Used because I really had fun with this movie, man.
Hmm.
It was a good afternoon at the Draft House, man. It really was.
Yeah.
How about you, Warburg? Where you feeling this one would sit on your
I'd probably
list?
put it at number two. I'm not sure which of the original movies I'd put it behind. I'd have to
Definitely
watch
not
them
3.
recently. I was thinking one or two. I'm not sure which one I would
Yeah,
put it as
it
my
is.
favorite because it's been quite some time since I watched them. If I had more time and we weren't renovating a house, I was hoping to get a rewatch in this
Mm.
week. But
See, I penalized Secretly Used because we didn't get Bebop and Rocksteady. We got what Toka and
Toka and
Razor.
Razor. Yeah,
Like we got those two guys instead. I'm like, yeah, like you get
yeah,
points docked for that. I'm sorry.
that's true. That's true.
no. So, all right. So then let's talk shows. I'm assuming are we all going to put the original? Are we going to put the original run at number one? What would you guys do for? What's your favorite TMNT show?
Yeah, I got to go with that original '80s run for me, man.
Yeah, that's what I
I'm
grew.
going the
That was my first exposure.
I'm going with the early 2000s run.
Okay.
You're talking
the
the
one that focused mainly on the Mausers and TCRI. That had a little bit of Foot Clan in there.
Chris, you would have been of the age of this. Fusion was probably a little after your time. Remember Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation?
Yes, I remember
I
that.
do.
I remember them
do.
introducing Venus, and it was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
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 Venus de Milo.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which was another
But
great,
yeah.
like, hey, an artist's name, or it was the name
Yeah.
of a statue, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a statue.
Yeah, it's like a famous statue. Yeah.
Yeah, but I personally I don't think I watched a whole lot of the original animated series. I watched, I think, all of the early 2000s Nickelodeon one, and they had a great Game Boy game as well. It was a side scroller. I used to play that all the time on road trips. So, plus it had I think every single TMNT has had a great opening theme tune.
Mm-hmm.
But I literally just listened to it this morning
Oh
because
yeah,
I
I
was
was gonna
like,
say, did we get a rendition in this of the theme song?
I don't think the
Well,
original theme song. I think there
in
was an
my day they
arcade
did.
one.
Yeah.
But
No. It was no. The arcade. Are you talking about the original, the very first 4-player arcade game?
yeah, I thought
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant.
no, not that one.
Because that's the original theme to the TV show in the 80s. But
Right.
um, no, I think
They
you're thinking of the Ninja Rap, the Turtle Rap, the Vanilla
we had the
Ice
turtle
loaded
rap in the car.
in the car. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might have just they might have just made it sound 8-bit, but there was a song, I think it was like after the mid scene credits that started playing during the credits, that I could have sworn
Okay.
was from at least a video game or something from back in the day, and they just bumped it into more modern sounding and make it sound good for a movie, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I imagine the sequel, now that they're gonna be public and like probably someone's gonna give them the name of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we're gonna get the theme
Mhm.
song. Because you kind of have to at some point within the
Yeah.
franchise. And obviously if they're doing a show, it will have the theme song. So like for me, like Shredder's Revenge did a great job with like kind of revamping the original theme. And I
Yeah.
played that as we were rolling into the parking lot for the theater. So that was a fun time. I really enjoyed that. That theme is definitely like nostalgia in song form. Is it just works even 30, almost 30 years later. Over 30 years later. It'd be what,
Well,
35 years? 36 years?
They're like
Something
pretty
around
close.
there. Yeah.
Yep, close. Because this came out. Okay, the original concept was very early 80s. The comic book, very dark.
Yeah, that was an IDW one, wasn't it?
Yep,
Yeah.
IDW. I mean, literally in the first couple of issues, they murder Shredder and like just like decapitate the guy on in the.
Well, yeah, that's why like the last Ronin is like that
dark,
kind of
so.
it works so well because it's like, yeah, it's the same guys who made the original run, and it's like they don't pull no punches. It ain't a kid's comic, right? Like,
No, Eastman and Laird's made this as a knock at DC and Marvel.
yeah, because
wanted
we were riffing
Yeah.
off the origin of Daredevil.
Yep,
Like the ooze that
So-
blinds him is the ooze that mutates the turtles.
exactly. So for them to go from something so dark and gritty in their Eastman and Laird's first comic, and then directly after that, the '80s cartoon, which like everything since then is based off of that first '80s run cartoon, right? And I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
that lit the world
It's-
on fire when it
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah, it was just it was like the turtle phenomenon was crazy. Like you had all of you had your He-Man, your GI Joes, your Transformers, you had all these different toys, but man, everybody wanted the turtles. Like because it's like, oh, even back then in the '80s, little girls were like, I want Ninja Turtles too. It was like, okay, cool. Like you had friends that loved Ninja Turtles, even though you like Transformers, they may not like Transformers. They like GI Joe, that may not be your thing. Everybody wanted turtle toys. Like
I
they
had
were
Raph in a Yankees uniform one. He's got a
Oh,
baseball
okay.
bat. Yeah. Like they had major crossovers with like those kind of things in their toy runs, which was really cool. So I quite enjoyed those. Me and my cousin played the heck out of those whenever they would come up from Des Moines.
There's few IPs that I'm okay with them rebooting every couple decades and it not become like redundant, and the Turtles is one of them.
Yeah,
It's one of them.
it's just one of those franchises you can kind of endlessly iterate on, and
Yeah.
still
It's
do
easy to
new
modernize
things.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I looked up the Mutant Mayhem score,
Okay.
and they have some great names for these titles. One of them is, so here's some of them: Dipshits on a Roof, Murder the Shreks. There is She's Gonna Milk Us.
Yeah, I love that recurring gag.
Oh,
We don't
yeah.
even have nipples.
Better than
milking
Mark
joke.
Ruffalo. It's
I
pretty
love-
great.
The milking joke was great. That
It
was
was good.
great.
It was
Why
good.
does that say milker? Like
The payoff was
it
great.
works so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. I need to listen to this now. Like, this is on my listen to list. But those are some great names for songs.
So my last one of like, what's your favorite video games? We briefly touched, like Chris, you brought up the Game Boy game. So what's your favorite game? Like for me, it'd be a toss up between, and I think just for the nostalgia reason, I'd go with TMNT 2 Turtles in Time.
Okay.
The arcade cabinet version of that was just like exactly what arcade games should be in terms of like a cooperative fighting game. And that kind of like akin to the X-Men one, which very similar. And then probably number 2 would be Shredder's Revenge. Where do you guys come down on the games? Because I didn't play many of the handheld stuff.
I think I might agree with you there because Shredder's Revenge was really fucking fun, man. Like we all jumped in when the
Oh, yeah.
co-op first when it came out. We all had a blast playing it. It's tough for me because I really enjoyed that first arcade game, that very first TMNT arcade game. Turtles in Time though was I think had a better story for a video game, and so I'm probably gonna have to stay with Turtles in Time. Yeah. Turtles in Time, then Shredder's Revenge. I'll stick with you there. I'll back you up on that one. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the handheld one that I played back in the early 2000s on my Game Boy Advance. But I did also play. I didn't really play it too much on arcade cabinets. I used to play it on my cousin's Super Nintendo, Turtles in Time.
Okay.
So, that was always like, I didn't always get to play that one, but I do remember playing it. And I remember I was always Donatello. I loved playing Donatello. I think weapon-wise, he's my favorite. Character-wise, I might go with Mikey, but like, I always liked those two when I was playing a game in the early 2000s. I would always go Mikey, but back in Turtles in Time, it would always be Donatello.
Speaking of so you're a Mikey Donatello guy. Fusion, what's your favorite turtle or character in the universe?
I mean, if I have to say Usagi Yojimbo is my favorite character, but realistically, he's from an independent comic that was just kind of bought and brought into the cartoon. I'm a big Donatello. I'll be honest with you. Every game I played, I was a big Donatello guy.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved playing him with the bow staff. Like in the movie, he calls it a giant stick. But I really liked. I loved him in the NES game. Loved him. Absolutely loved him in both the two first arcade games. So yeah, I'm gonna say Donatello is my guy.
I'd probably go Leo myself, just because as a character, like Captain America, Superman, like that's kind of my whole thing as the leader character, right? The honorable character. So that's probably would be my go-to. But back to the game thing. So like, I've probably said this before in different things, but where I would always meet my grandparents for pizza on my mom's side was in Mason City. They have an old Godfather's. So, and then they had multiple arcade cabinets. One of them had TMNT 2 Turtles in Time, and then obviously with the pizza aspect of it, it just fits so well. Plus the nostalgia, you're growing up in the 90s, like the early 90s were like the absolute peak of like TMNT and all that, and then it would the other new shows would come up later after the run was done. I had the VHSs of the original show. I should probably buy the Blu-ray at some point of like just to have it, because wasn't it really not a very good transfer though?
No,
If I remember right,
apparently,
it was not a very good one. I do wonder, post this movie, and like Batman got a new Blu-ray. Like Superman, the DCAU is getting their Blu-ray run. Like a lot of them, like they're starting to actually give a shit about having good versions on both physical and streaming. So I'm wondering if Nickelodeon, because like they put out an actually good version of Avatar and Legend of Korra. Like that's a solid Blu-ray collection, especially for the first Avatar, which is a little older. but not that old. It's nowhere near as old as TMNT. So I don't even know if they have good versions to pull from.
That's
was-
the thing. I mean, I don't know if I recall. It was it was an animated show that was built in 4.3, wasn't it? Not 16.9.
Exactly. So they would have to
That's
pull it back and do.
same thing with they did that with the Simpsons that they
Well, I
realized
mean,
we
you
should
can
have
still
done.
do it. Obviously, Batman has
Yeah.
done it, but
Yeah.
like, it was in an era of television where that wasn't something like that era of show. We didn't care about it as art like that. Whereas like
No.
Batman, we did. Like from the jump,
Yep.
people who were in the industry were like, no, this show is actually something important.
Oh yeah, there were people in Hollywood that were fighting for it to be nominated for Emmys.
Yeah,
The Batman animated series, yeah.
like that is when the kind of corner turned, and we start like going forward from there in animation. You have a lot more, like the runs are complete. They're in the right order. The transfers are good. The Blu-rays are good. But before, unfortunately, with TMNT, I don't know if they have the like a good source to pull from. You know, like did
Yeah.
they store everything correctly?
Mhm.
Are the files still where they would want them to be? Right? Like, are they in good shape? Is anything corrupted? You know, because like clearly, I remember the transfer. The best part of it was it came in the what's the name of the turtle thing? The vehicle.
Oh,
Fuck,
It's a party wagon.
oh,
that's the name of it.
Was it the party wagon?
Might
I
have
think
been.
it was.
It might have been. And it came in a case of that, so the Blu-rays would
I
slide
thought
in
it-
the
I
top.
thought it was shell something.
Yeah, well, you have to look that up and let me know. But that was a really cool
Yeah,
idea.
it was the party wagon. The party wagon.
wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. So and then you would open up the top, and that's where the discs would sit. That was the best part of it, from what I'm told. It's like I haven't sought it out.
Yeah, I think the audio wasn't top notch too. I think
That's
they
what I
had
wonder. Like,
issues.
is those master files just not
Yeah,
in a good
I
enough
think-
shape to do it, short
But
of
we
a
have-
remake?
This could be something that AI tackles and see what it can restore and what it can fix.
Yeah, much like what I was talking with, like the Farscape stuff. You know, like upscaling
Yeah.
it to actual HD, and that era live action where it was close, but doesn't hold up when you upscale it to modern televisions, like what's sitting over here. Like it's not going to look good. So, like, I'm curious to actually crack open my Batman one, but I hear that one's actually a really good transfer. So, we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah.
Still mad the digital code expired. Fuck you, WB.
That's so stupid. I hate that digital codes expire.
Why? It's so
That doesn't
dumb.
make any sense.
Because it's not on your servers. It's on Voodoo's
Oh.
servers. It's
Yeah.
on Movies Anywhere servers. It's not on your studio servers. The
See,
space
most of
don't
mine
fucking
are-
matter.
Most of my codes all go through Google Play. So if I
So you
log
use
into
Play.
my,
Like, I use Voodoo for
Yeah.
most of mine.
Okay.
I'm
okay, mine are
over
all-
120 right now.
Oh, I think I'm like at 50 or something like that.
Well, my
Might be-
movie collection is getting pretty big.
Yeah,
like-
you rushed you jumped ahead. You were well ahead of me already buying physical media again. So I went a little trigger happy late last year, earlier this year, and caught up, but I'm still behind. Yeah, I have
Like, you can see.
something
Wait,
like
no.
60 4K Blu-rays now.
Yeah.
So.
I put away all the ones I bought from Prime. I got like 15 things,
I
either
did-
shows or
I
movies.
had to have willpower, man, because if I would have started during Prime Day, I would have bought a shit ton of like Blu-rays.
Yeah,
so.
I had $180 in cash back, so it's like, you know what? I'm gonna get a little nuts. So I bought $300 worth of stuff and really only paid $120. So
Yeah. So when I get like Amazon points or my Best Buy points, and it's like, oh, you get $20 and certificates. I'm like, I'll buy a Blu-ray with that.
my
That's-
next
that's
my
my
next
plan.
project to tackle is the old DVDs. I want to upgrade to either Blu-ray or 4K, because like the replacements is never gonna get a 4K, right?
Yeah.
It's a great football movie.
So good.
It's hilarious.
So good.
But it's not like Tommy Boy's not getting a 4K. It should, I would argue, but it hasn't so far. So I got the Steelbook for like $10. You know, like there are certain ones like Blues Brothers. That's probably not going to get a 4K transfer.
Probably not, even
But-
though that should get a Blue K.
Yeah, like there are
Blue
movies like that I've got sitting on DVD, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I should upgrade you to at least Blu-ray, because Blu-rays do last longer physically too in the case. Eventually, DVDs will degrade if you like,
Yeah.
even if you're properly like kind of storing them. What's up, Jaron? How you doing? Apparently, it is 5 o'clock. Yeah. When did this happen? Were you playing Baldur's Gate all day? But so everyone on
Probably.
the YouTube audience, we are technically live on Twitch. We're over at twitch.tv/MrWartburg. So Jaron just popped in chat, just out of the blue. Now that we're done with the spoiler talk, but
Yeah.
so yeah, let's we're at right around 55 minutes here, which I think is a pretty good spot to start wrapping up. Any last things we want to talk about before we get into random tangents?
Not turtle related, man. I'm ready to like talk about a few other things. Like we talked about it beforehand. I'm still a little hesitant, but I'm also somewhat excited about Blue Beetle coming out in a couple weeks. Hopefully, it's a good movie.
Are they going to
because I
day
know
and date that on Max?
I don't think they have, but
It feels like one
I
they
think-
should.
yeah, they should. They really
Or
should.
at the very least, give it a short window.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's probably not going to make its budget back at all in the theater. I think its budget was like what 150 million or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not going to make that.
Yeah, it won't make its money back, but I think they just want to dump it and move on.
Yeah.
And then they see if the character resonates, because if he does, you can keep, like, much like Sasha Kaye's Supergirl, she's going to come over because her character resonated. She resonated. She's coming over to do something in the new DCEU. Maybe not the
Well,
same
apparently,
character.
Gunn said you might see Zolo's Blue Beetle again. Jaime Reyes.
Yeah,
maybe
apparently
showing up
he really likes his version. Obviously, I don't know if he liked the production like around his character
Yeah.
enough to bring the whole thing over, but the actual character probably will.
Mhm.
And it makes sense because he was a main character in some newer animated properties like the Justice League Teen Titans movie. He was in Young Justice for most of the run. Actually got a really heavy part in season 2 of that show, which is for me maybe the best version of DC Comics yet ever put to small or large screen. You should all watch Young Justice. It's very good. Sadly, it got canceled before they got to do their final season. Much like many things with WB right now. So, Fusion, anything else you want to touch on?
That's really it, man. I mean, Strange New Worlds. We've got the finale next week. This has been a phenomenal season. I can't believe we're
Speaking
already
of Paramount, holy shit, Strange New
Yeah.
Worlds. Watch that
Oh.
show. Holy
I mean,
shit.
good lord, like, how are we at the finale already, dude? Because it felt like not that long ago we were talking about the premiere and how Anson Mount was taking a back seat because in real life his wife had a baby, and so he wasn't available. But like, it feels like these last 10 weeks have just flown by for this show, man.
Dude,
I mean, it's
this show it's taken some big fucking swings this season. Like,
it's
you get
yeah,
you do a crazy time travel, like emotionally gut punch movie. You've got an animated movie crossover. Then you do a dark rumination on PTSD and war and like the aftermath of it. Oh, and then you do a musical episode right after, and it works.
I messaged you guys about this. It works because most musicals are illogical with their storytelling within a show. They actually have a very logical reason for why it's a musical.
And then they do the meta. Hey, we're following the rules of a musical.
We're following the rules of a musical. Yeah.
Is it like Community in a
No.
Star Trek show? Because like
No.
It's
that's
closer
what
to
you
Ted Lasso in a Star Trek
Yep.
show.
Okay, because what you described there is very Community, where it's different
I can
genres
see that.
every
That's
episode.
that is the comparison. It's that they. I was listening to an interview with Jonathan Frakes, who's Commander Riker or Captain Riker, and who's probably one of maybe the best director in all of Star Trek history in terms of episodes or movies.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, you come on Strange New Worlds, and you get told it's a comedy, it's a horror movie, it's a time travel episode, and then you go, and then you build around that theme, and it's almost like a 1 hour movie every single week, and they still structure it like their old ad based shows where you have the moments where there would be an ad break, right, if they were going to do that, but it works really, really well, and I think Strange New Worlds is just. At this point, I think you can definitively say it's the best Star Trek show ever. As it exists now, it's the best Star Trek show. It doesn't have anything weighing it down. Even its not great episodes are still good episodes. Whereas like Deep Space Nine has some clunkers, right?
Yep.
And that's probably
then
my second favorite.
Next Generation goes off into
And takes
the
2
abyss.
seasons to get good.
Yeah.
Like
There were the first couple episodes were okay for TNG, but then like you said,
basically once Patrick Stewart stopped acting like he was above it all, it got good. And the cast, like everyone's like, yeah, Pat Stewart was disengaged, wasn't part of really the cast for a while. And then once he realized, once he started doing conventions and he realized, oh shit, people actually like Star Trek? Because he's a Brit.
Right.
He didn't get Star Trek back then. And then he did. And once that happens, TNG becomes amazing.
Yeah.
But it takes a while. Strange New Worlds, 10 out of 10 right out of the gate, which is rare in Star Trek and rare in a lot of shows. that are long running. So
I
Strange
would
New Worlds,
say
watch it.
Discovery is under the radar just because of like the time jump and all that.
Yeah,
It's a little
it's
confusing for
definitely
people.
more of a
It's not
drama.
bad. Yeah, it is.
It's of the
Um,
shows, it's more of a like modern day drama than anything else in Star Trek's canon,
but I
which
will
puts off
say,
some fans. Some fans
yeah,
don't like that, but also they don't understand it's a different type of show. It's a sci-fi drama, like heavy on the drama. It's not The Expanse, which is heavy on the sci-fi, right? Like it's just a different type of show. So people that bitch
whereas
about it should kind of get over it.
Strange New Worlds is a Star Trek show. Like
Yeah,
you get
it is the
elements from
core
different,
ethos of Star
yeah,
Trek.
everything can happen in this show, which is the whole point of it.
Yeah, it was
You think about it.
the original pitch from Roddenberry was, yeah, we can tell any kind of story. It's a vehicle for telling any kind of story in a futuristic sci-fi setting. It's really cool and it works. So Chris, watch
Yeah,
Strange
go
New
ahead,
Worlds.
Chris. Yeah, you got to watch it, man. You have to watch it.
You guys talk about it all the time in the Discords. Like,
Dude, Carl's getting caught up finally. I can't believe Carl hadn't watched this. He's the biggest Trek head I know besides myself. He hadn't watched this.
I think he's being a little overly critical of it too. He's not saying it's bad or it's okay. I think he's like, I don't think he's. I think he probably he approached it in the wrong way.
Well,
if
I think
that's
he's viewing at
that's
it from the lens of, ooh, Picard really sucked. Like,
Yeah,
right?
and that's fair because
So,
the first two seasons were really bad at Picard.
is Strange New Worlds a live action or animated?
live action.
Okay, do they have an animated one
They
right
do.
now?
Lower Decks, and it's very
Lower
good.
Decks.
Okay,
It's good.
Once
I
they
couldn't
stop trying to
remember the
be
name
Rick
of
and
it.
Morty and try to be a Star Trek show, excellent. Takes them a little bit though, because it's in that animation style of Rick and Morty.
Yes,
then-
yeah.
Once they stop trying to be that as a show, then it starts to really work.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, that actually is a good tangent because of the Paramount of it all. Well, it's been about an hour, 2 or so here, so we should probably wrap up. So if you guys are liking the vibe of the show, of course, be sure to follow Chris over at Gamma Caruchador. I'll put his link in the YouTube channel down below. He does things on Twitch. He's an artist you can follow on Twitter. I'm at MrWartburg. Fusion down there is at It's Mr. Fusion. And definitely follow both of us because we're starting up a new college football show, which I'm very excited about. It's called Two Back Set. We're going to talk about Iowa, Texas. We're going to talk all things college football, like the craziness going on in college football realignment right now.
Oh, good lord!
Like the implosion of 100, like it wasn't, as it existed, it wasn't a 100-year-old conference, but it was an older power in college football. And yeah, the death of that was something we talk about, plus our season preview. We're going to do a picks league where you can win a trophy. So like if people like Chris don't watch college football, they can still win something just by playing a random pick 'em that we put together every week. So it'll be a good time. And I'm very much looking forward to it. Slate for the rest of WAFER. So 73 will be Strange New Worlds finale.
Yep.
That's this Thursday. So probably next weekend we'll talk Strange New Worlds Season 2. An entire episode of us, effusing the praise of Strange New Worlds. 74 will be Justified, City Primeval. We'll talk with Nick Schwartz, possibly Christian Young, both over at Rooster Teeth. We'll talk to them about a show the four of us with me and Fusion really, really love. The original run of Justified. It's maybe the most underrated show of the golden age of cable shows.
Right.
It never really won anything beyond Mag's Margot Martindale. That's her name. I think she won an Emmy for season 2 for a supporting actress. It never won anything, but it should have. It's one of those kind of shows. Much like Battlestar never won anything, but it should have. It's that kind of underrated. So City Primeval finally is starting to feel like that. So I'm hoping they can continue that run towards the finale. And then 75, Fusion and I are going to do our top 5 movies of all time, plus reading through the guests like Chris submitting their own top 5s, and we'll either agree with them or shit on them. We'll see where we go. So thanks everyone. We're going to get out of here. And we'll see you hopefully next weekend for episode 73.
Take care, guys.
Bye.